Hey, what's up everyone? Shamrocked here with another boss guide for you. This is for the Ancient Protectors fight, which is the council boss in the Everbloom dungeon. Specifically, this one is for a 25 Tyrannical key with Raging and Storming as the affixes. So this boss, would say it was a lot harder before they nerfed it a bit. They nerfed the amount of damage that the tank took, and then they nerfed, I believe, like very minuscule, the damage that the bolts did as well. I think with those nerfs though, even though they were kind of small, it makes this boss more than doable, especially with our kit. We have such an amazing AoE healing kit this season. Like really, it's incredible. So hopefully with the tips that I give you in this video, if you are someone who's struggling with this boss, you'll find out like that it's really not that bad. You just have to manage your cooldowns smart. You have to play smart, watch your group members health, obviously, and then there's actually a weak ore that I use. I posted it in the last video I made, but it basically shows who's getting targeted with casts throughout a dungeon. It's very useful for a boss like this because you can actually see who's getting bolted, and that will actually help you know when to interrupt, when maybe not to interrupt, when to use a cooldown, when to focus somebody, etc. Obviously, this boss is one that's a lot easier if you have a little bit of coordination. Even if you're not in Discord, I would at least say at the beginning of the dungeon, make sure you guys figure out who's going to be interrupting the Toxic Bloom and who's going to be interrupting the Revitalizing Waters, which is the heal, and then who else is just going to be free kicking the random bolts throughout the fight. Okay, with that being said, let's go into the talents. So on the left side of the tree, there's really not a lot of utility needed for this dungeon. The only utility I would say is probably Poison Cleansing Totem, which is just for the wasps at the beginning of the dungeon, as well as for the abominations that do a Poison Claw on the tank that kind of hurts. Both of these are not as dramatic on a Tyrannical key, so they're not that worrisome. And if you have someone like a Pally in your group that can dispel poisons, you probably don't even need this talent. However, there's not a lot of other places where you could put it. I think on a Tyrannical week you may want to do Thunderous Paws if you don't take the poison cleansing. Maybe you want to do Static Charge, however that's not very useful on a Raging week. You could also spec into Earth Elemental as well for the extra defensive, which could come in handy for the mage boss as well as the last boss. Also, and you'll see I actually do have 2 points into Elemental Warding just for the reduced magic damage. This is going to help you throughout the entire dungeon because the majority of the damage in this place is nature damage. Looking at the right side of the key, this is pretty standard to what I've been running for Tyrannical keys this week. The only difference between this and the other videos I've posted so far is that instead of a point in current control, which reduces the healing type totem cooldown by 30 seconds, I've actually put that point into Flash Flood. This may be negligible for some people. Like you may think this is not like, what's the point? And I agree with you to an extent, but for a boss like the mage boss, you could be literally a millisecond between you getting a heal off and somebody dying. So that's actually the reason I run Flash Flood. But for this boss specifically, you don't need Flash Flood. If this is the only one you're worried about, you could run Current Control, you could run Wave Seeker's Blessing, you could go Master the Elements. Like you could tweak this however you want. I'm just giving you what I would run for this dungeon. Okay, so now that we've gone over the talents, let's take a look at the boss fight. As always, I have slowed down the video and I've also included an ability tracker on the top left of the screen so that you can see what I'm casting and when I'm casting it. So make sure you have full mana for this fight. It can be mana taxing depending on the group and how many bolts go off. Just tell your tank to chill out if you need to drink. Going into this fight, you should be lusting, and the common strat right now is for DPS to just burn down Telu, which is the guy who does the nature bolts and the toxic bloom casts. And then you move over to the second guy. I think the intended strat when they actually designed this boss was for you to like swap between the two casters, but it just appears to be easier to do it this way if your healer can handle healing through it, which would be you in this case. So going into this fight, you're going to lust right off the bat. That's going to help you out. You put a Cloudburst Totem out right away, and then you just start healing. And like I said, if you have at least some semblance of like what the kick order is going to be, in the sense that someone's watching Bloom and someone is watching the heal, you technically should always be someone who is free kicking just because your kick is on such a short cooldown. You'll also notice pretty much like, I don't know, maybe like 20 seconds into the fight, I actually popped Ancestral Guidance. The main key, I think, to getting through this first phase, which is like this burn phase of Telu, is to go ham with all your cooldowns. Like you don't really need anything. Once he dies, the fight becomes insanely easy. So really just cycle. You basically want to cycle through almost all of your cooldowns just in this first phase. This was actually a really clean run, so I didn't actually need to cycle through all of them, but I do think I used at least 3. Keep in mind that if you're running the Spirit Walker's Title Totem, or Spirit Walker's Title Totem, that is an amazing cooldown for this fight as well, because you can pop that, and then you can, if you have a Cloudburst totem down, you can just like throw an insane amount of chain heals and healing waves and just fill up that Cloudburst while keeping everybody alive as well. Like I said, you want to be a little bit at the beginning of the video, you want to be really smart with the kicks. So if you have this weak aura that I'm going to put in the details for this video, it's also in my last one, it's going to show you on your unit frames who's getting targeted with the next bolt, and that will tell you whether you, like, if somebody at full health is getting targeted, then it's not as important to kick, whereas if somebody with, like, 50% health is getting targeted, it's very important that you either kick or heal that person up before the bolt actually hits them. So having this weak aura just helps you sort of like triage who needs attention, who doesn't, and when to kick and when not to kick. Other than that, like I said, you're going to want to cycle through your cooldown. So I've already used Ancestral Guidance, I've used Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem, and I've used Healing Tide, all within that first phase. And as you can see, I was able to keep the group super healthy, even with bolts going off. And yeah, that's pretty much the hard part. Once the first boss is down, you're going to be able to just deal with the next two, and that's pretty easy in itself. With the last caster off, what you want to do is, once again, just kick when you can. He's not actually going to cast the heal anymore. Every so often, I don't know if it's like a glitch or if it bugs out, but he will cast the heal like right when he's about to die. So if that does happen, just make sure you kick it. But usually he dies before he even gets the chance to get the cast off, because he does it when he's at like 0.5% health. Otherwise, throughout this fight, you're obviously going to be wanting to watch like where you're standing. Technically the best way to do it is to kind of stack your ranged DPS, and then once the charge happens, you all move together out of the pool so that you only spawn the pool in one spot. That's probably the one big improvement that we could have done through this fight, is that we could have maybe stacked a little bit better. However, our composition had 2 ranged and only 1 melee, so it wasn't as important to keep the area clean, because as long as there was space for that 1 melee to stand and attack when you needed to, then you're good. Something obviously that's really important to note, and sorry, I mean obviously in the sense that you probably know this if you've been running hierarchies into this fight, but if this is your first time sort of like checking things out and you're just looking at a guide, when the guy charges and he puts the green swirlies on the ground, the big ones, they don't actually hurt you when they hit the ground. So if you're standing in it, like don't panic. Like, you don't need to get out ASAP. If it's the choice between life and death of somebody and you just standing there while it hits the ground, I would say just stand there. You'll be fine. Just make sure you move out of the puddle that it leaves behind ASAP once it goes on the ground. And thankfully, they've actually made the puddle a lot easier to see now. So it used to blend in with the ground like a lot. So it's nice that they made it more of a different color green, and the bubbles are coming up, so it's much easier to see now. Okay, once you have the first guy down, most groups will then get the second caster down. However, they're usually just going to be cleaving a bit, so most likely they'll die together. However, if you're in a more coordinated group, they might say, focus the charge guy if maybe the tank is struggling, or focus the caster guy if you're struggling. But yeah, once again, this was a very successful run. I still have like 60% mana, which is pretty crazy. Usually when I run this fight, especially on like a hierarchy like a 25 or a 26, I haven't yet been able to try it on a 27, but sometimes you end up with like no mana just because you have to heal so much in that first phase. But like I said, if you are good with your kicks and you are watching who's getting targeted and you're using your cooldowns, nice and often, but spread out enough that they're not overlapping, you should be absolutely fine to handle this fight. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer you, and then I will hopefully upload the next boss, the mage boss, shortly, as well as a guide. So once again, thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.